Oh, it's gone live. On time. That's annoying, but okay. What a little bit more time to grab a book when I set that going. Yeah, well. Right then. Hello, everyone. How are we doing? Hello. Hello, everyone. So today, what I'm doing is pretty much using the two coolest names of convoys which get ignored. You know, one of the things, what inspired this entire video being selected today, actually, was back in, I think it was January. I was having a conversation with a class, and I said, yeah, the free convoy runs to Malta, they're so important because they don't get any supplies in the meantime. I went, what? Yeah, it's halberd, pedestal, and they all had various versions for what the other third convoy were. And I was listening to them going, no, there's a few more convoys than just the three, for starters. There's a lot of convoys to Malta. But Malta's always under siege, so there can't have been many convoys. Well, siege is... when you're besieging an island, it's very different when it's an island in water, in an open body of water like a sea or an ocean, than is necessarily an island in the middle of a river or a lake. Sieging it is more a case of trying to reduce it by bombardment and trying to make it difficult to be resupplied rather than necessarily managing to eliminate the entire concept of resupply. Just a small distinction there. And so today's video is quite literally, I've used Operations Tiger and Splice, and we're talking about this the whole way through, to talk about as a window into all these other convoys. Because there are lots of convoys. Lots of convoys. Now, yes, there are already a couple of pointing out that there have been lots of Operations Tiger. There have been. You know, honestly, Operation Tiger is one of those things which is reused a lot. But technically, for those who are not quite sure, there's even two Exercise Tigers. Now, that's fun. But Exercise / Operation Tiger, which is most well known, is the 1942 training for D-Day. But, honestly, there have been lots of them. There was Operation Tiger, which was operations in Java by the Australian Reconnaissance Forces during World War II. There was Operation Tiger, which was the German assault on the French fortified sector of the Saar during the Battle of France. There's Operation Tiger, which we're talking about today, which is a Malta convoy in 1941. Already mentioned the one from 1942, but Operation Tiger in 1942 was an operation in the south of London, and then Operation Exercise Tiger / Operation Tiger in 1944 is the practice for the Allied invasion of Normandy. And then there's also Operation Tiger, which was a prosecution in London, and Operation Tigar, a Croatian army offensive that ended in the siege of Dubrovnik in the Croatian War of Independence, and Operation Tigar, which was the Army Republic of Bosnia and Herzegovina, operating against the province of Western Bosnia, the semi-autonomous province of Western Bosnia during the Bosnian War. And those are just the ones listed on good old Wikipedia. I know of at least another 9 Operation Tigers, because, believe it or not, to a certain kind of military mind, calling something Operation Tiger is automatically auspicious, because tigers are cool. Now, the interesting thing is, the one organization which doesn't fit that pattern is the Royal Navy, because, let's be honest, most of their names are pretty random, and the trouble is that's the problem for it. Eventually, even random does come up with tiger, because it's a word in the English language. So that fits the basic criteria for what they try and make, which is they're looking for distinctive words which are not going to be the same as any others used. So, Tiger. But there's also Operation Splice here. Yeah, that's another operation. There are lots of them. Lots of them have names. Operation Hurry is one of my favourites. It's one of the early ones. There's also an operation which technically could have been called Hats as well. And there was another planned operation which is going to be Fringe. So technically you could make Sorry with a Fringe on Top song from various operation names in World War II if you wanted to. And there's Operation White, there's Operation Collar, there's Operation XS, there's Operation Winch, Operation Dunlop, Operation Temple, Operation Rocket, Operation Tracer, Operation Railway, Operation Status. They literally call an operation. What's the status of Operation Status? Give me a status report on Status, will you? Operation Callboy, Operation Halberd, Operation Propeller, Operation Astrologer, Operation Perpetual. And it just goes on and on and on. It goes on and on and on. So, this is the point. And by the way, that operation list just comes from the various convoys run to Malta. And the difference between a convoy run and an operational convoy run is usually the inclusion of something like Force H to provide firepower, because they think it's going in a high threat period. Or it's critical enough it has to get through and they can't just rely on a normal escort to get it through. It's all fun. So, what am I also going to start off with? Well, this video, I'm starting from a point now that if it has Naval History Live, Patreon, or Brew Ships in the title, it's a live video. Okay? So this is a live. I'm going to start interacting with the chat about now. Just a heads up to anyone who's watching who doesn't like that. Small note. So, hello 9680 everyone, hello Leslie Mitchell, hello Michael Cooch, hello Tanith Verka, hello Timmy Locker, hello Mark Harkness, hello Drakenred, hello Peter Dawson, hello Calvin Gasberg, hello Michael Cooch. Oh, I've already said that, but I'll say it again. Hello Paul Amos, hello Jacob, hello Leslie, hello DG40, hello Wayne, hello Christopher, hello Stephen Richards, hello The Brock, Hello, Blackburn Maximus. Hello, Abazaski. Hello, everyone who's here. Rowie Finker. Hello. Hello, Raptorat. Hello, John Shea. Hello, Gagamba. Hello. And hello, Malaga. Now, what you might not be knowing is you might not know what the live is going to be next Thursday. That's because I wasn't honestly sure whether we were going to be moving before next Thursday, so I didn't schedule a live, but also didn't have a premiere scheduled just in case I wanted to do it as a live. Seeing as I doubt we'll be moving before much later in June than I wanted to move. It looks like we could be moving house, and if everything goes to plan and the website actually launches and we sort everything out so we can actually raise the money in time, we could literally be moving into the new house at the beginning of the week, and I could be going away with the shipshape crew at the end of the week. That's looking like a possibility. So instead of me having weeks to spread that over, looks like it could end up, by the joys of administration and all sorts of organisation things, to be the same week. Fun! Just what I wanted! I didn't go for all the paperwork and joy to organise the methodology I did of moving so that we could have this all going on top of each other. I haven't been trying to organise and coordinate this house purchasing system since frigging October last year for it all to take place in a 1 week in June. Ay, caramba. Hello, Mega Scrow. Anyway, so, if I'm at all... as said, the lives over June, July, go down to basically the brew ships on the Sunday. They're going to be the lives. That's true. My Cooch, because of the likely date of moving and because we are not selling this house before we move, because of my mum and sister's illnesses and because of their effect on them on painting, etc., we always arrange to do it by... I would do the place... the plan had been for me to move in a couple of months ago to a place down in Cornwall. Set that up. Get all the work done there. So I had all builders, everything arranged. Had a good building team lined up. And then after I'd done that, got that all done, then I would come up, they'd move down and I'd come up here. And I'd get everything ready here for sale. What we're now doing is moving everyone down there. Then I'm getting this place ready for sale, with the help of having to hire someone, because I'm going to be going away. So to get it on the market as soon as possible. And then, when everyone's back, what we're going to do is probably have to move my mum and sister out to a holiday letting of some kind for a couple of weeks, at least, during the middle of the build, if not for a full month, while I coordinate the build and live in it. That's not what we plan to do. This is because my mum and sister have the very peculiar version of asthma, which means even asthmatic-friendly paints they are allergic to. Aren't we lucky? So, what does that mean for the general election, Joy? Well, it means that I'm probably going to be abroad during the general election if we do manage to get everything starting off that way, and so I'll be doing postal vote, probably by proxy this year. I've never had someone having so much trouble moving a house with the UK thing. No, it's not a UK-wide thing. It's because of... we're doing ours by bridging loan. And to make so we can do the move in the order we're doing it. And coupled to that, we are going to be, it's going to be in an 8-house chain. So basically, we're buying a house. We've got no one we're selling our house on, so it's not contingent on that. So we're buying one house, and then there is a coordination of 8 more moves, or 7 more moves, all the way up till you get a break in that to coordinate. So you are coordinating between law firms all along that chain. You're coordinating between houses. It's just fun. It's the way it's worked out. If you know, most people are not in chains that long. Most people are not. And most chains are 3 to 4 houses long. We're in an 8-house chain. It's just, as our lawyer says, everything that could get more complicated in our move has got more complicated. So, technically, we'll still be voting in this constituency, because we'll still have this address. And we won't have moved out from it that long. We literally will have gone on longer holidays than we'll have been out of this place, and we'll still own it, so we'll vote here. Because that's probably easier than trying to rearrange everything when we are literally going to move in probably about halfway into June. Anyway, that's enough politics discussion. For frankly, if I wanted a politics discussion, I would walk down the local political clubs. It's going to be It's going to be fun. Hi Dan. Hi Victor. So, with that said, let's do a shameless book plug because, well, as you all know, this channel is entirely supported by you. Frankly, it's been amazing to me because I'd sort of, when I was working out reducing workload so I would literally be able to concentrate on organising the house move, and I did an addition on that. I have to do with the house move, have now sent somewhere in the region of 3,000 emails since October last year. Which sounds like a lot, but a lot of them are reply emails just going, yes, that's fine. So that cuts it down a lot. But because you're coordinating with so many people, and your lawyer's coordinating with so many people, and your bankers are coordinating with so many people, and they have to get your permission for everything, including permission to talk to each other. Do not get me started on that particular joy. For them to talk to each other because of data protection, they have to get your permission, which I understand once, but the fact it isn't standing permission, you can't give them standing permission, does make life fun. Yeah, you send a lot of emails. So doing all that, realistically, I wouldn't have done any research, wouldn't have been able to afford to do anything, buy any books, do any work, and history stuff, other than sort of, only just concentrate on the work I needed to do to be able to put food in my belly, basically. But thanks to all you, I've been able to keep it up. I've been able to keep doing it. I've been able to keep buying books and keep working at it, and keep talking naval history, so thank you. You've made it possible. And, yeah. And also thanks to Dan Freeman for his muscle. He's been very useful moving house. Although I do need his muscle again this weekend if possible, because I need his help to get a model railway down from a mezzanine floor. Yeah, I know. That's good. I have worked that one out. Same with bankers. But no, Tribals, Battles and Darings, it's my book. I'm an academic. If I want to get promoted, if I want to get a permanent post, I need to sell a lot of books. It's basically how you get assessed as your value as an academic in the UK. Although I have to admit, after having read some of the stories that recently coming out about South Korean universities and how PhD students are treated over there, and having experienced life as a PhD student in the UK, I think some of my colleagues who complain about having to do... I had a colleague once who was complaining that they had to do 6 hours of teaching in 1 week, and admittedly I did look at him and went, I'm down for 18 hours of teaching this week, so go complain to someone else. But no, after reading about some of those universities, the experience of some PhD students in South Korea, etc., yeah, I'm glad I was British. On a railway sounds fun. Yes, it will be fun. It and models have to come down. And after someone came out and found me dangling over the let's say the space, because the mezzanine doesn't go right up to the wall, so I was dangling over that space to try and get models down. I got told off and not to do that anymore. Apparently it's dangerous. Anyway, so let's start off with the convoys and the club runs. Now, here's a fun thing. Here is a fun thing. There are many discussions about where the name Club Run came from. Why they were called club runs. There are jokes that it comes from the Royal Aero Clubs. There are jokes that it comes because it was an aircraft ferry service. And I would say mostly that's not a bad scenario to say. But also, some of the covers for people being organised to move around was that they were sporting clubs as well. So there are lots of options of the scenarios of where that could come from. But club runs are basically the convoy ferries, where they're ferrying aircraft to a point at which they can reach Malta. And I've also thrown in some battles into this convoy thing, so you can see and put them in some context. 1940 is interesting. You have Operation Hurry, which is HMS Argus. And I have no idea why helpfully... Thank you, Blackburn. Thank you, that's very kind of you. Why, for Operation White... HMS Argus hasn't come up on that one. Let me try and fix that, okay? Why haven't you come up? You're on the PowerPoint. You're in the Excel spreadsheet. Let's resave the PNG. Gagama, you don't have to buy your donate job with a 100 million won donations to uni. No, you don't. Although don't give them the idea that might be where universities start to replace on their funding in the UK. So there you go, Argus has appeared. Now, some of these runs are very successful. Some of them really are successful. If we consider Operation Hurry, the 12 Hurricanes all get there. Operation White, 8 of the 12 are lost en route after running out of fuel. So sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. The thing is, though, it's kind of interesting looking at its timing, because you have Operation White taking place after the Battle of Taranto. You have Operation Hurry taking place back in July 1940. And if you consider when Italy joins World War II, which is June 1940. In fact, in terms of an exact date, June 10th. Yeah. June the 10th, 1940, Italy joins the war. And by about the 31st of July, the Royal Navy's organised its first delivery of Hurricanes from HMS Argus. They've also done, in July, by the 9th of July, and then 10th of July, they have their first convoy sailing for Malta. And those 8 ships all succeed in getting there. Now, what I've done is when there are months without anything in them, I've left them blank. So I put blank spaces. So, for example, there's nothing that seems to run in September. None of the club runs take place in September 1940. None of the convoys seem to run in September 1940. But that doesn't mean supplies weren't getting through, because here's the kicker. So HMS Argus does Operation Hurry. Another part of Operation Hurry is a couple of submarines turning up in Malta with the spare parts for them. And by the way, before you think everyone was happy about Operation Hurry, there were quite a lot of Hurricane pilots who were really quite furious when they realised they weren't flying back on the Sunderlands. No, no, no. They had to stay and fly the Hurricanes over Malta. They thought because of their carrier experience and carrier training, they would be taken back to do it again and again and again. And actually, there is an argument for that. Because they'd done it right the first time, perhaps you should have kept using those pilots for that same mission. But the Royal Navy preferred, the Royal Air Force and the Royal Navy preferred they stayed there and they send more pilots out. Which has disappeared. Six-hour Operation White Line has disappeared now. I'm not sure where it would disappear. Has it reappeared? Basically, the reason I haven't put arrivals for the club runs is because they really is the aircraft that arrive, not the ships. So that was just getting confusing. Well, when you say that, how do I put this politely? Okay, so in Operation Hurry, the submarines used wouldn't... Well, how do I put this politely? I have them listed, and I want to have their actual picture up when I talk about them. Where is their note? Where's the notes and picture? I knew I should have had them already loaded into this, but I wanted to talk about it. That's that. Yeah. So, there we go. Now, for this scenario, not that. Where did that come from? Where did our refuser come from? I didn't want our refuser. I wanted that one. No, I didn't want Yonai. No. I didn't want Yonai. I wanted that one. Yay! So this is HMS Pandora, and her sister, which was another HMS Proteus, another of the Parthian class, and the Parthian class are not really what I would call mine-laying vessels. They are boats which were commissioned more for the Far East. They are quite long-range, powerful boats, capable of doing 9 knots submerged. One of the things you start noticing is both the British and Italians, who very regularly have to deal with the joys of the Strait of Gibraltar, their submarines are are definitely faster than 7 knots submerged. Definitely faster. 17.5 knots on the surface, a range of 8,500 nautical miles at 10 knots on the surface. more interesting operation below water. Crew of 59, and it's these which carry in the supplies. Now, this vessel is actually lost in April 1942, but that's the point. What the Royal Navy was doing with these convoys, with a lot of these operations, was they were adapting a strict policy of, can we get the supplies through? What supplies do we need to get through? That's what they're doing. They did like to use mine-laying subs, but they used any subs available. Pretty much, mine-laying subs are great because they have more space. You can use all the mine storage facilities to carry supplies. But if you can't get them, any other sub will do. As long as it has the range and has the space to carry what you require. And honestly, the space is fudgeable. Because do the crew really need to be able to walk on the floor level? Or can they crawl? Do the crew really need all that space? Do the crew need to have a shower stall? Does the crew need access to both toilets? Do they really need their own bunks? These are all questions you can ask about the crew. Seems there's some fun in the chat because Yonai appeared. Do you really need the crew? Unfortunately, yes. Trust me, the Royal Navy would have loved that. Send penguins, they'll sleep on torpedoes that go boom, supplies less volatile. True. But think about this, all these convoys are getting through in 1940. So Malta has supplies prior to the war, they really do. But the real point is that in 1940, the Allies managed to build up, or rather the British managed to build up, with help from the Australians and the Canadians, more supplies. And it's pretty much uninterrupted. If you consider that number of ships reaching, going from Malta to Alexandria, or from Alexandria to Malta, where, you know, how many are getting to Malta? Quite a lot. In fact, in 1940 alone, I'm counting 25 vessels going to Malta. 25 merchant vessels making it to Malta. That's quite a lot of supplies. Okay, yes, we're not talking about supply ships like they were later on in post-World War II, but they're still quite big ships. And then we get into 1941, which is, of course, the year we're focusing on today. And 1941 is a very busy year. You've got the Battle of Cape Matapan in the 27th to 29th of March. The Battle of Taringo Convoy, for which the Malta convoys are crucial, in the 16th of April. You Battle of Crete, 20th of May to the 1st of June. You have the Battle of Cape Bon, 13th of December. And you had the first Battle of Sirte, 17th of December. And now is where you start to get some losses, okay? 2 ships, 3 ships, 4 ships lost, 5 ships, 6 ships lost. You know, you work that through, there's 6 vessels lost on those convoy runs. And mostly they're lost on runs to Malta. Operation Tiger, of course, is running from Gibraltar to Alexandria. Okay, I have to feed all the islands as well. They were doing that. Although one of the other interesting things about Malta is that it was found to have surprisingly deep food reserves. It turns out the Maltese are very good at finding sources of food, and they have a lot of traditional recipes, possibly from the various the history of sieges of Malta. Because just look through the history of Malta, and basically theirs is of surviving sieges. And they're often sieges which have got a lot closer than bombarding with aircraft. A lot closer. And this is also where some of those very interesting names start to show up. Those very interesting names. You know, Operation Winch, Operation Dunlop. You can see there. Operation Halberd down there, but also Operation Propeller and Operation Cowboy or Callboy. That's HMS Ark Royal delivering aircraft to Gibraltar to Malta. And Ark Royal really does do a lot of work in this year, but so does HMS Furious. And also HMS Argus is back there. But even HMS Victorious takes part in a club run. And it's also interesting to note the pattern of the club runs, because you have them in April, then May, and June, a lot of them, and then September, and then November. It's almost like there are campaigning seasons. It's almost like there are campaigning seasons still. Raptor, not a patrol, so a single load of torpedoes and no stern torpedoes. Potentially. Sorry everyone. One of my colleagues from Shipshape, the same colleague who spent quite a lot of time in Canada complaining about certain beverages, is trying to make the case that not all American beer is not fundamentally bad. Now, seeing as I don't drink, I have no idea and absolutely no beef in this fight at all. But it's interesting to note that particular colleague is the one making that case. Dan, really campaigning scenes, but it's so much fun to go about the heat of the day in the Southern Mediterranean. Oh, it is. It's truly lovely. I'm looking forward to taking you on... I'm looking forward to, if Shipshape does it, which I hope we will do, which is the Crusader Islands trip, I'm looking forward to June and July in the Mediterranean with a group of as part of a group of 4 pasty white British males. Because let's be honest, we are gonna get burnt. And whilst Drac might claim he will not, Drac will claim he'll get tan, Drac will claim he'll get fine, I can guarantee you the one who'll probably end up getting sunburned first is probably going to be Drac. Because he's going to be sure he's going to be fine. And then he's going to realise the Mediterranean is a very, very pure kind of sunlight. That should all be sorted out. I have another meeting. Michael Cooch, there are a few things which are going to send my blood pressure higher today. Ship shape, we're sorting out. We are pushing. And then it... Fairly sure that's 1942. It is 1942. Why has that not updated? Because I just did a refresh of all the PNGs, and so that should have updated ages ago. What is where are they getting these old PNGs from? I'm wondering if it's because it's still got the PNGs from when I did a practice run of this uploaded, and it hasn't for some reason refreshed on the new PNGs. But OBS is supposed to, when you shut it down and restart, refresh. So, the 1942 convoys. And, you know, convoys pretty much come to an end in the end of 1942. We can all sort of consider why. But pretty much, after you were sort of pushing things onwards, you stocked up supplies. You'd pretty much made it to the point at which you were sending the supplies, no longer having to do convoy runs across the whole Mediterranean with fret, but literally you're just going from the southern Mediterranean coast to Malta. Suddenly your supply route gets a lot easier and a lot quicker to do and get supplies across. And of course in 1943 there is also the lovely glorious thing known as Operation Husky, which takes Sicily, the other side of it. Now, again, please have a look at these names of these operations, because this is what I love. These operation names are not well known. You have Spotter, Spotter 2, because Spotter 1 failed, and Picket 2, because Picket 1 failed, and Operation Calendar, Operation Bowery, Operation LB, Operation Style. Operation Style involved HMS Eagle. Operation Salient, then Harpoon, Vigorous. That's usually the third. Harpoon is usually the third one, or Vigorous, that they actually remember. It's always fun. Halberd, Harpoon, Pedestal, or Halberd, Vigorous, Pedestal, or all those variation ones. Then Operation Pinpoint, Operation Insect, Operation Bellows, Operation Baraton, Operation Train. There's even an Operation Cropper, which goes from Gibraltar to Malta, which had 2 ships succeed and 2 ships lost on the voyage. Pedestal, of course, is probably, Vigorous. They're the biggest ones. And that's why they're sort of remembered. Pedestal, because whilst 14 ships succeed, 9 ships lost. Hang on. Let me check that data, because... yeah. No, that's not... Why has it got... Oh. Now I realise what it's done. Ah, that explains it. It's done that. Oh, now I know why it's got the data issues it has. Oh, happy me. Oh, joy, oh, joy. Well, that's easy enough to fix. Da -da -da -da. And fixing the issues because I've finally realised what it's done. It's conflated. How did it do that? Oh, must be me, but I do not know how it did that. It's gone back to a very, very wackadoodle presentation, which was basically, for some reason, it's uploaded the PNGs of the first draft. And I was wondering why I was having to fix it individually. I do not know how it's got them. Okay, that makes sense. That works better. That's far better. Did I fail to make the appropriate sacrifices of the machine tutors? Yes, obviously must have done. Honestly, it's been. I will apologise. This poor PowerPoint, and I will apologise for that one. Has had a fun week. As most of you will know, I had a fun Sunday, and it's been fun the rest of the week because, believe it or not, my mother, who managed to get injured Sunday, which is why the live was moved to Monday, she got injured by a very helpful corgi who was trying to help her pick something up off the ground, and the trouble is, instead of grabbing what she was trying to pick up, his teeth grazed her hand, and as you can imagine, corgi teeth are sharp and are designed to cut through things like flesh. Yay. Anyway, so it's all up to date now and all working now. Screw's, yeah, that's all correct now. And let's check this one is, yeah, so that's all good. So the 1942 runs are fairly successful, but one of the things you might notice is the club runs stock in October. They stopped long before anything else, and honestly, that's a big reason, another big reason, why the supply of getting convoys through to Malta suddenly gets a lot easier. The reason is this. In October 1942, it's finally made possible that Spitfires Mark 5C, VCs, can be... Hang on, VC... Hang on, that's 95, isn't it? C is Century 100, VC 95. Mark VCs are able to fit in with additional internal, external tanks. They're basically able to convert into long-range aircraft, and they can therefore fly straight from Gibraltar to Malta. And then the adaptations can be reversed the other end, and they can be turned into fighters. So pretty much what you can do from that point onwards is you can fly in as many fighters as you like, with no problem. Yes. VCs. Now, it's a small C, so I don't think it's 95. I think it's 5 Cs, VCs. But this is the trouble. When you're using Roman numerals and then use letters as well, it does get confusing. Because some of those numbers are actually letters. And I have to say, whenever I look at it, I'll sort of wonder why. It's the type of Spitfire which is armed with 420mm cannon. And as said, it can be modified into basically a long-range ferry aircraft that could then be modified back quite easily. Senator, we are now using expert at work. I do not like it. You have my support and my sympathy. Sure, Sean. Sure, I believe the C stands for cannons. Well, they have VBs and VAs. Spitfire Vs. Let's see. I think C-type stands for the C-wing. There are A's, B's, and C's and D's. I don't think it stands for cannon. And it was the first wing to accommodate the cannon. But not necessarily, it's not because of the cannon that they're called C's. Sorry, I will admit that Royal Air Force Spitfire variants, there are so many of them that I honestly tend to look it up when I have to. But the VA, VB, VC, all sorts of things are the various options. And I do have a bonus picture in here as well, which I've added in, which hopefully should be working. Hopefully, he says, should be working. It's one of those things of, I found it, and I thought it would make it all, it would be cute for you all. Although it's not an operation we are covering today. I did think you'd enjoy it in there. I did think. Hi Tim. Hello. In 1940, the US and Massachusetts fired several 16 shells that were due to all-fuse runouts. Did Washington, South Dakota have the same problem as Massachusetts? Less so, but they still had issues. It was, not always fun. Not always fun. Why did that completely reset? Well, at least on the 1942 convoy runs. So yes. There you go. This works this time. This was the other thing that annoyed us when I clicked through it. Went, hang on, where's that gone? Yes, this includes, there was an operation, and during Operation Bowery, USS Wasp was used to deliver some of the Royal Air Force aircraft. And this is a Spitfire VC launching from USS Wasp during Operation Bowery. And Operation Bowery takes place in May 1942. And it's, you know, it's Admiral Sir Charles Samaras Daniel, in charge of Force W, with USS Wasp as part of it, doing their duties to launch aircraft, basically. And there are quite a few pictures. There's even a picture of the HMS Eagle from the Spitfires on Wasp, looking out at her. And there's a great picture which illustrates some of Wasp's lifts facilities and has a Spitfire there as scale. It's just, there's some beautiful pictures going around which are completely free to access on Operation Bowery and USS Wasp in the Mediterranean this time. Gunshot A-type is 8303, B-type is 220mm plus 4303, C-type is either 220mm or 250 cal plus 250 cal or 420mm, and E-type is 420mm. There's also D-type as well. There is D. On the Spitfires there is D as well. There are all sorts of different options. RAF but more than the shit. What do you mean there's no alcohol? Oh, don't get me started. I'm fairly certain, knowing the British Armed Forces, they probably found a way to bring with them. So, why Tiger and Splice? Why did I pick Operations Tiger and Splice? Well, because the number of convoys which run the entire length of the Mediterranean are rare. They're interesting, but they're rare. Why are they rare? Because, honestly, you only do it if you really have to. You don't really do it if you don't have to, because, let's be honest, it's far less resource intensive to send it around Africa. Far less resource intensive in World War II. Secondly, Operation Splice, because Splice is also cool and surprisingly effective. And thirdly, because I could. You see, the thing is, I could pick from pretty much any one of these convoys. It's one of the fun things about doing the whole convoy stuff and doing all different convoys and looking at all the convoys in the Mediterranean. I can make videos about any of these convoys and I'm not stepping on anyone's toes. Have a look in YouTube. No one's doing videos about these convoys, and I find that rather sad. They're either all grouped together, in which case they get barely any attention, or they are completely ignored. And I realise the big convoys, Harpoon, Vigorous, Pedestal, Halberd, these are the big things. These are the big, well-known convoys. These are the Malta under siege convoys. We have to deliver supplies. I get that. I really do. But I also get that there are a lot of other operations going on, which need to be thought about. And some of these operations happen simultaneously. Let's be honest, one of the fun things that we haven't talked about is that, you know, things like Operation Bellows, which is mentioned back here, is part of Operation Pedestal. And excuse me, I've got my mum calling for some reason. Sorry, they were mutinying doggies. And Mum, with only one hand, couldn't deal them. Well, she could deal them, but she was just... Yeah, mutinying doggies. My sister has come home, and instead of coming in the house, she's decided to play I'm going to park the car many, many times, which has caused the dogs to go nuts, which upset Mum. Because she didn't know what was going on. Because of the move, we've had to take down quite a lot of the Ring cameras. Life is fun. Apologies. Apologies. My Spitfire is British owned, and therefore it is subject to British alcohol laws. It probably is. Joys of life. Joys of life. That treatment. I'm from the Royal Air Force. I'm finding myself flying from an American carrier. I cannot cope with this sober. So, let's get back to this. We were talking about Operation Bowery and the fact that, an Operation Bellows, which went on at the same point as Pedestals. So, some of these operations are literally joint operations. Pedestal, Bellows happens at the same time. HMS Furious tags along, and she actually does quite well. Operation Bellows does pretty darn well. There are 39 Spitfires flown off HMS Furious as part of Operation Bellows. And they make it. They do, they make it. Okay, well, they try to get 39 off, but, they get 38. But, I don't know, that's pretty darn good odds. If you're getting 38 out of 39 delivered, that's a fairly decent rated return. Hello, you. Aren't you supposed to be in the house looking after your mother? Aren't you supposed to be behaving yourself and guarding and taking care of the family? No. Okay. You have instead decided to join us. Good boy. Yes, we do have the senior fluffy research assistant has joined us. You. Oh, yes, of course. Hello. Are you doing this because you want a hug, or are you doing this because you want to try and get closer to biscuits? Or is it terrible of me to think that you will be so base? So based. As to just be seeking biscuits. For those not sure what this particular creature is, if I just do that and go, hello, yes, this is our poodle. This is the thing who considers Dr. Dan a pillow. Don't you? You consider him a very comfortable pillow. Right, so we get on with this. Yes, we shall. Oh, God. I'll become. Hello. Yes, I'll become. Oof. Onto the lap. There we go. It's a biscuit seeking firm missile. That's true. Oh, good lord. So, that's why Tiger and Splice. They're little-known operations. They are really cool little operations. There is not much of a discussion about them, because the thing is, they are operations which go successfully. I would say, for one given thing. You know, the Royal Navy loses one merchant ship in Operation Tiger. They lose nothing in Splice. And you sit there and go, well, you know, why aren't they talked about? Because there's no drama, really. Yes, the enemy does attack. Yes, they have to fight them off in the old way. But there's no great glorious victories. There's no heroic last stands. There is just an operation. And it's one of the things that's forgotten about war. And the study of war. Because if I am selling a book, or if I'm selling a screenplay or something about war that's going to... But I'm going to go for the heroic bits because they're what are going to sell. They're what people want to read and imagine themselves doing. But the reality is a lot of war is just professional operations. And sadly enough, people die in those, but it's nothing glorious. It's nothing out of the normal. Not in the way that, you know, you want for the screen or to sell books. And it's an interesting thing to discuss because if we consider some of the modern notions which have come, especially recently when people have been sort of talking about defence of trade, etc. Oh, that's not a job navies need to do. The navies don't need to worry about defence of trade and defence of merchant ships. That's not something they do anymore. Well, yes it is. But the trouble is, if you read wars and all you read are these high-stakes operations, then you get a false impression. Because if you're sitting there going, well, they couldn't do that anymore. No, but probably they can still do the run-of-the-mill operational stuff. That sort of level is still going to need to be there, and you're still going to need to be there defending against it.
No, I don't want to go.
Did you get my message?
No, I'm live. I'm talking to everyone. I am the fluffy research assistant.
Yes.
I'm seeing my fans. They're seeing me.
I realise that, but you need your dinner.
I can survive on love alone.
Dinner?
I have
Fry
love.
some tuna.
Tuna. I love you all, but tuna! Tuna comes first, yes. Tuna! Off for tuna.
And I have found your parking spot.
Thank you. That really didn't help because that caused so much wolfing on the dogs. I had to leave. Yeah. So, didn't help. Love you dearly. Great intention. Tell everyone what you're doing in future. I know, unprofessional of me to put that on here, but seriously. Family. They're the only ones who can ever wind you up. And all my family watching, no doubt. So, let's consider all these operations in aggregate. Of the 209 merchant ships convoyed to Malta, via Malta, and let's be honest, 209 ships, and these are sort of ship journeys. So these might not be individual ships, because some ships do multiple journeys, some don't. But basically they're ship journeys, which go... 30 ships fail to make their destination. So of the convoys, we consider the Malta convoy series. 30 ships of those 209 ship transits which are started, 30 fail to complete. That's an 85.6% plus success rate for 1940, 41, and 42. So let's put that another way. Yes, Malta is a hard battle. Yes, the siege of Malta is frigging scary. Yes, it is perilous. Especially the Straits of Sicily. And bringing the ships in from this direction, which you're having to if you bring them from Gibraltar. And you have far more supplies coming to Gibraltar end and far easier to get supplies to Gibraltar end, so that's where you're often starting from, because otherwise you send all the supplies around Africa and then launch them from Alexandria with the Mediterranean fleet, which is also at the end of the resupply chain, rather than forces at Gibraltar, which you just need to supply across the Bay of Biscay, which is not an easy time, but you can do that. But still, 85.6% plus success rate. And again, if we go back to here, the point I'm making throughout this is there are battles going on the whole time. These are major actions. We're talking the Second Battle of Sirte, the First Battle of Sirte, the Battle of Cape Bon, the Battle of Crete, the Battle of Taringo Convoy, the Battle of Cape Matapan, Taranto, and Spadavento. All these are big battles, and yes, the Regia Marina do put in a heavy fight the whole way through. So this is being done in the face of concerted opposition. In the face of concerted opposition. So I think that's fairly good. Gagama, what percentage were damaged severe enough to be taken out for action for repairs? Well, these are merchant ships. So as a rule, as long as they still float, they're fine. And the main thing you really care about is them actually achieving that. And I think some of the lost ships, judging by the stats, include the vessels which literally limp into Malta and die in the harbour. Judging by where the stats come from. Ah. So these are the stats, these are the things we're putting into context. Before we discuss these operations, before we discuss them and what they are, this is what we're putting into context. The fact that the Malta convoys, as glorious as they are, and they are really a tough road to row. You're looking at casualties of a rate of, over the whole convoy series, there are 31 merchant vessels sunk, 30 failed to make it, 30, 31, depends on how you're doing the maths. Of 1,600 civilians on Malta die during World War II. 5,700 service personnel on land, sea and in the air. 707 aircraft lost. Royal Navy lost a battleship, 2 aircraft carriers, 4 cruisers, a mine layer, 20 destroyers, 40 submarines, and all sorts of other vessels as well lost. It's listed as officially lasting from June 1940 to December 1943. And pretty much once you have Malta in range of land-based aircraft and you're able to live around the clock air cover, merchant ships can start to reach Malta quite easily. As said, it's one thing, once you can push the Axis forces, especially the Italian forces, because let's be honest, they make up the majority of them, back from their empire, through far enough through Libya, and preferably to Tunisia, you can make resupplying Malta a lot easier, and that's what does happen. I seem to remember from a book I read that even salvage cargo from ships sunk in harbour. Yes, if the ship sunk in the harbour, they still salvage the cargo. And that's the important thing in many ways, the cargo getting there. The cargo arriving. Excuse me a second. Sorry, I was wondering why I could hear Zebedee, the fluffy research assistant, woofing so loudly. It was very, very loud. I will endeavour to be on Discord this evening, I have to say, after this. So, with all that said, and all that contacts going, Operation Tiger. Now, Operation Tiger, as said, is a convoy. Technically, it's Convoy WS-8. And it was sailing from Gibraltar to Alexandria with 6 destroyers of Force H running supplies to Malta. Starts out on the 6th of May, when 5 15-knot merchant vessels passed Gibraltar, escorted by Force H, with additional battleship and 2 cruisers en route to Alexandria. Now, that battleship let's see. I have my unit history up here, and I'm just confirming before I say it, because after having all that dunder, I'm worried I'll get it wrong, so I'm checking. Now, May 1941. It's going to be June 1941. Oh, it is. It's May 1941 till... Yeah, so it's... Yeah, sorry. That's not helpful. That is helpful. I think... I don't. It's not Warspite because Warspite already went out there, and that one went out there then. So I think it's I think it might be HMS Valiant. She took part in Mezo Kabir. And then she's there for the Battle of Cape Matapan. Which, again, hang on, that's before this. That's before Operation Tiger. That's trying to figure out. It's not Warspite, because Warspite got there ages ago. Could be Queen Elizabeth. It's probably HMS. If it's not Valiant, it's probably HMS Queen Elizabeth. Which I was sitting here quietly thinking got out earlier. I'm glad I didn't go with I didn't go with memory. I did check it because memory was definitely wrong. Yeah, it's HMS Queen Elizabeth. It's not Valiant. It was HMS Queen Elizabeth, which was taken on them, and she's part of Operation Tiger. So it's quite a heavy force if you consider it's Force H. Plus Queen Elizabeth, plus some extra cruisers. Escorting Clan Campbell, Clan Chatham, Clan Lamont, Empire Song, and New Zealand Star. Plus, of course, they've got their own destroyers with them, and as I said, there are 6 of those vessels, 6 of those destroyers were going to be used to deliver more supplies to Malta itself. Now, they had very full miles on board Ark Royal, and they had a total of 9 escorting destroyers. The Radio Nautica engaged the convoy day and during the day, and didn't really do that much during the night. They didn't really have night attack operations. There are reasons for that. Let's be honest. If you want to do night attack operations against a moving fleet, it A, requires a lot of training, B, requires a lot of information, and C, requires a lot of coordination. Day strikes are a lot easier. Day strikes are a lot easier. Now, what they also did, and also got up to during this operation, was they bombarded Benghazi. And they managed to get... how do I put this? They managed to get their ships most of the way along. But they didn't get all of them through. Sadly enough, they didn't. Our HMS... Well, not HMS, of course. Empire Song. I couldn't find a decent picture of her, but she's quite a large merchant vessel. Is lost to mines which have been laid by Italian cruisers earlier that day. Same mines had been laid and relayed again in that field, and they'd sunk Paracom earlier in May as well. So this was... they ran into a bit of a minefield. But it's interesting, they didn't lose aircraft. They didn't lose ships to aircraft. They lost a merchant vessel hitting 2 mines. Everything else got in, got out, and it was all fine. So Tiger results in those destroyers reaching Malta. It results in these merchant vessels ploughing on to Alexandria. It results in the battleship HMS Queen Elizabeth, which would of course be part of the Battle of Matapan after this. And the cruisers getting through. But honestly, the Fulmars do a good job. They shoot down some aircraft. They don't really lose any of their number. The destroyers provide a very heavy anti-aircraft fire. The Renown does her duty. I think it's Renown with Force H at this point. I'm sure it's Renown. Yeah. I always worry. She only disappears off in September 1941. It's there August 1940 to August 1941 and October 1941 to February 1943. Renown is the capital ship with Force H. Yeah, it is Queen Elizabeth. I know, I managed to work that one out and check that one, because, as I said, Brain was saying Valiant, but I was going, no, that's not right. It's not right, I'm sure it's not. But the Brain was saying Valiant, but not right. This is the joy of life. I'd say, I did have fun recently, because someone actually put a message, put a commented that, you know, I obviously pretty much to the effect that because I occasionally correct myself on air, I can't really have a PhD because PhDs do not get things wrong. And I found that amazing, because apparently you get your doctorate and you're always all-knowing and always correct. Whereas what I find is the more information you have in your head, the more likely you are to occasionally slip up and give the wrong answer, and give the wrong answer with confidence, because you've got so much information percolated around here that you're sure it's that one. And the thing is to learn to listen to the little voice in your head just going, are you quite sure? Because, again, lecturers are taught to sound confident. Why? Because we need to, because otherwise students don't listen to us. Believe it or not, if you stand up front and go, it may have been this or may have been that, they don't listen when you're teaching, so you're taught to sound confident. And taught to phrase it in a confident manner. But you're still not always right, and you have to be prepared to be wrong. Now, I have to say, there are ways you give corrections. I find if you make a big song and dance about someone being wrong, that tends to annoy them and they don't listen to you. Whereas if you go, are you quite sure that was correct? I think it might have been X, Y, or Z. Can we check that? Because I'm not sure, and it's there's enough similarities going on here that it's worthwhile checking before we plough on. That tends to go down a lot better with people. One of the tricks you have to learn in life for working in any office scenario, any scenario in life, is how to correct upwards. Yeah. And then you have to, then after being years of being taught to teach confidence and project confidence, you don't have to teach them, well, this is there is uncertainty, and the joy of history is there's a lot of uncertainty. Because we have certain dates, figures, times, and things that we can point to and go, that's what happened. That's what happened, that's when it happened. But the big uncertainty is often, why exactly does it happen? Because there might be a range of factors which are leading to X as a decision. But you don't know which of those factors are actually the most important. Often one of the best ways to try and figure out which of those factors might be the most important is to actually do an inverse analysis. and say, well, let's say they do Y, let's say they do Z, let's say they do A, B, or C, you know, any of the other options they could do, i.e. an alternate history. And if you do it properly, you can work about and go, they didn't do that, but that would have benefited that factor most, or that would have benefited that factor. So which factor takes primacy? And you're almost excluding it by you're almost working out what's the primary factor by working out what would have been the factors which have benefited most from the scenarios they don't do. That's good. If you make a big song and dance, the lesson is don't be wrong. If you correct and show the lesson is how to be correct. Yes. There is a scene I often play from Scrubs to my postgraduate students, which is really silly. It sounds really silly to people to tell people that use Scrubs as a teaching tool for postgraduate. But in it, Dr. Cox, that character, says something that, you know, most of the time, the purpose of being a doctor is not knowing the answer, but going and doing the research to find out the answer, because you won't know the answer. You've got a range of symptoms presenting. They could conform to half a dozen different options, and you have no idea which it is until you go and do more research, and even then, it might not be right, because you might do testing and need to find out more, because we're still learning stuff about the human body. Which is a fun thing to do. And it's very much the same in history. And that's the fun of when you get the postgrads and you're giving them that information. They're sort of going, so basically you're telling us nothing is certain. No, I'm telling you that these ships left Gibraltar on the 6th of May. And I'm telling you they dropped their stuff off and transferred across on roughly the 9th of May. And I'm telling you that they got to Alexandria on the 12th of May. So it was 6 days of hard sailing. That I can point to. I can tell you that they started off with 6 merchant vessels. They arrived with 5. I can tell you that that merchant vessel was lost to mines. I can tell you that they got through their battleship and they got through their other vessel, their cruisers. I can tell you the destroyers successfully rendezvoused and successfully dropped off the supplies they were dropping off. And I can tell you that Force H got in and out with barely a scratch. That's what I can tell you. Now, you can start putting forward your case of why do you think that happened. I would argue that in May, Luftwaffe are transferring Fliegerkorps 10 from Sicily to the Balkans, which does release some pressure. But again, this is the very beginning of May, and at that point they haven't fully gone yet. I would say that has a big effect on Operation Splice, which are the next operation. Then we get to Operation Splice. Drakenred, we have a professor of ethics here who recommends specific episodes of House MD and Bones for debates on ethics. Yeah, I also tend to have West Wing. West Wing tends to be a fairly good one for ethics debates, as does Yes Minister, and I got told off once for using the very, very sweary what is it? thick of it. Yeah, W1A is just too, they're just too nice. And for some reason, no one can see a certain character in W1A without thinking about them in another program. And then they will spend their entire time talking about him in that other program. So, Operation Splice. Now, this is a fun one because Operation Splice is run between the 19th and 22nd of May. And quite simple, it's HMS Ark Royal and HMS Furious going and delivering aircraft. All their aircraft reach Malta, but at the same time as Splice is going on, there is also MW7B, which are 2 tankers sailing from Egypt for Malta, carrying 24,000 tons of fuel. And please note, those vessels, and we should be sure about those vessels. Those vessels get there, and they, how do I put this? They're not technically escorted, because how they run it is they send the 2 tankers sailing in 7B, and they leave, and then the fast convoy 7A, which has 6 freighters, escorted by 5 cruisers, 3 destroyers, 2 corvettes, also sail after them, and they are also delivering supplies to Malta, and they are followed by Abdeel and Breckenshire, which leave with the main fleet. And all the ships which are due in Grand Harbour arrive on the 9th of May, being escorted in by a minesweeper, which managed to detonate 12 mines on its way in. The minesweeper literally is going in, boom! And carrying on, and boom! And it's just, the whole way through, it's setting off mines. And think about that. So what they've done is they've got the 2 slow ships running ahead. Once they're ahead enough that they're going to arrive on the same day at roughly the same time, in the danger zone, they then let the fast convoy go. And those 2 slow ships are tankers. That's how confident in this period in 1941 the Royal Navy is in its control of the sea. And then, after that, the main fleet sails out as a covering force, with Abdeel and Breckenshire, which then, well, let's put this nicely, how do we describe it? Breckenshire is kind of fairly fast in some regards. 14 knot though. Convoy, a convoy ship, supply ship with fuel oil, and you've got Abdeel, which is a really fast ship, and they all managed to meet up at the same point. They all managed to get in at the same day. And this is why you end up with a stat of, well, 6 merchant ships, all 6 arrived. Now, some of those merchant vessels are heading for Malta. Some are heading for other spots. And that's the other point about those convoys. Some are heading for Malta, some are heading for other spots. They peel off. So they get where they need to go. Breckenshire was basically a clan-class merchant vessel. There is a definite... I have discussed Breckenshire on this channel before. She was featured in a key ships. And yes, there are discussions of her being unofficially capable of a lot faster than 14 knots. But let's consider Operation Splice. 48 Hurricane 2s are flown off Furious and Ark Royal and all reach Malta. All reach Malta. So does 24,000 tons of fuel. And why does that matter? Well, if we consider when the Battle of Crete is taking place, at no point during the Battle of Crete, which is the 20th of May to the 1st of June, and yes, lovingly, Freedom Corps X has moved to the south at this point, at no point do you really hear again any conversations of, well, Malta's running low on fuel oil. They're not. Not at that point. They've been fully resupplied. Or as much as they're going to get into them. And this is the point, really, again, about these operations. They are working. They are viable. So then let's get into another operation, because I just thought, hang on, we're talking about these operations, we're talking about what's going on, and yeah, at a certain point, you need to do more. But we've been talking about how hurricanes get to Malta. We've been talking about those operations, and, well, Crete, the Battle of Crete ends. And when it does, that's a problem for Malta. Well, don't worry. Again, Furious and Ark Royal churn up. And this is not a photo from Operation Rocket. Actually finding... This is one of the other interesting things is that I swear someone a few years ago went through what are the famous operations. If it's not a famous operation, we're not keeping any of the images from it. Or we're going to label these images as from a famous operation. Because some operations just seem to have no images around them. None at all. And that's sad. But also not impossible, because let's be honest, in World War II, some people got really, really funny about taking photographs and wondering about how much information. Even this picture at one point was worried because it might give people information about them. You sit there and go, really? What information is this going to give about Ark Royal that the enemy doesn't already have? That's the important point to ask, that the enemy doesn't already have. You've got puffs of smoke from her AA batteries. That's not something they don't already know about. You've got the fact that bombs manage to come close, but no cigar, aft. As I've pointed out many times with aircraft carriers, and there is a reason why you're more likely, if you go look for the stats and the history, you're more likely to get hit in the aft of the carrier than the forward of the carrier, because an aircraft coming in and dropping its bomb probably aims for roughly forward of the centre mass, because that's normally where the dive bomb is aimed for, and then ships moving forward, bombs dropping down. Timing usually results in the bomb hitting either aft of the ship or the aft of the ship. It's fun. And one of the other fun things you have is that in some of the later operations, they don't just take aircraft out, they actually assemble the aircraft as they're going out. So HMS Furious becomes well known for getting crated aircraft aboard her, assembling them aboard the carrier, and then launching them. So if you consider the pilots in this matter, they are launching off aircraft which have been hastily converted into carrier operation versions in order to do one carrier launch so they can land at Malta and do air defense of Malta. And their aircraft have literally been assembled from crates aboard the aircraft carrier while it's sailing to the launching point. Not sure about you, but I think I might have found a new level on the scale of bravest people in World War II. I'm still pretty much sure that the people at the top are the Royal Navy observers who flew into Taranto Airport, Taranto Harbour in 1940, waist deep in aviation fuel, with Italian tracer coming up to them. Because, frankly, that takes a special kind of courage. Waist deep in aviation fuel, tracer coming up at you because the long-range fuel tank seals weren't working. That takes a special kind of courage. I mean, there are people who've done very brave things. Charged machine gun nests, all these other things. I agree. But you're literally charging a machine gun nest whilst waist deep in aviation fuel. That for me is pinnacle of, oh my lord, that's brave. I would say not far below that is taking off an aircraft which has just been assembled aboard your ship. I have great faith and trust in mechanics. I just would remember it's been assembled literally from crate aboard the ship. But we'll leave that to one side. Now, Operation Rocket is interesting for a very specific reason. There's a reason I brought it up as an extra bonus one here. It's because the 35 Hurricane 2s are flown off Furious and Arcrot, and then are guided by Blenheims from Gibraltar, which are flying straight from Gibraltar to Malta. And again, this is one of the interesting things, because I've had this conversation with people who go, well, you know, I asked them, where did the other aircraft come from on Malta? Because there are fighters operating from Malta, but there are also Blenheims. There are all sorts of interesting aircraft operating from Malta. You know, if we consider the RAF strength in the Siege of Malta, they have all sorts of aircraft operating at various points from Malta. And whilst the fighters do have to be got out often by flying off from carriers, a lot of the larger aircraft get out there by flying themselves out there. In fact, it produces this absolutely beautiful image, which I have on my desktop, save for this precise moment. There we go. Radius of action of Allied aircraft. And I'm actually going to expand it a bit because, let's be honest, that bit down into the desert doesn't really matter to anyone. It just doesn't. So you've got Swordfish carrying a single torpedo, its radius of action. Then you've got a Wellington carrying 4,500 pounds of bombs. And then you've got Furmore with its bomb reduced to 1,000 pounds. Its radius of action was 900 miles. So it could go even further than the Blenheim. And the Blenheim carrying 1,000 pounds, Blenheim 4s carrying 1,000 pounds of bombs, could reach all of that area, operating from Malta. And you can now start to see why Malta represents a very, very big problem for the Regia Marina and the Regia Aeronautica and the resupply of North Africa. Because a Wellington carrying 4,500 bombs from Malta can hit Benghazi, can hit Navarino, can hit Branzi, Taranto, Naples, Bari, Rome, Messina, Palermo, Trapani, Sirasu, Augusta, Bizerta, Tunis, Suisse, Sfax, Garbs, Tripoli, Homs, Misrata, and Sirte, and El Agiria, and Caligari if they really feel like going after Sardinia. The Blenheim can go even further. So Malta, if it can be kept supplied, really does represent a strike back. Pauline asks, can I order a Spitfire crate from Amazon? Sadly, I don't think you still can. Now, I have to admit, this is a Blenheim 1, I think, rather than a Blenheim 4. But the point is, Blenheims are pretty darn critical to Malta. And during... well, I've got my Excel spreadsheet here. During June 1941... so many aircraft reached Malta that some of them were ferried onto Egypt to replace losses in Egypt. They literally got 142 aircraft to Malta in 1941, in June 1941. 142 aircraft there. This helps. But again, there are high points and low points to a siege. There always are. There are high points and low points to the Mediterranean operations. There are times when the technology goes in cycles, and the offensive technology is at a peak, and the defensive technology is in a dip or trough. And there are times when it reverses. And there's a lot of capabilities which come out from Malta, which are part of Malta's attack repertoire. One of the most common to come out of Malta, and one of the most critical to come out of Malta, are Force K, 14th Destroyer Flotilla. Which are always a particular favourite of mine, let's be honest. I find their operations in Gibraltar from Malta to be really, really interesting and really successful. It starts out in October 1941 with, well, some Leanders as well. they start off with actually no with our refusers, Aurora and Penelope, and they have Lance and Lively, but they also have Force B there, which is sent on Ajax, Neptune, Kandahar, and Jaguar. 14th Destroyer Flotilla is often there, and they're actually there before I think Force K is. They are certainly there in... They did about Taringo convoy from there, which is the 16th of April 1941. So I think they are actually there. They are there before Force K is. And 14th Flotilla, they are a pretty cool force. They truly are. They're also quite a scary force when we consider at the Battle of Taringo convoy, they take with them HMS Nubian. Again, known for being a lovely, friendly vessel. I would like to point out that all these vessels are lovely and friendly. HMS Mohawk, HMS Jervis, HMS Janus, all known for being absolutely lovely and friendly ships. That's 2 Tribal class and 2 J class destroyers. I mean, they are known throughout the world of history of World War II. These were incredibly friendly ships. And keeping a surface strike group at Malta could have massive effect on the enemy. Yes, the Royal Navy lost the destroyer in this operation. But so a very, very lucky torpedo. I have covered this in my book. I'm going to reiterate, shameless book plug. If you want to learn more about this, the Battle of Taringo, you will find far more in my book about it and how really interesting it is. Yes, I have been watching. Bill Mayer came up a bit on my YouTube watching the other day while I was working, and everyone else seems to do shameless book plugs as well. So I like that. But yeah, in the Battle of Taringo convoy, the Italians have 4 cargo ships lost. They lose 2 destroyers. They have another destroyer beached. They lose all sorts of things. And the British go, well, we lost a destroyer and 43 killed. That the Italians lost 350 to 1800 killed. World wars are wars of attrition. They truly are. That's not a good result for the Italians. Paul Maximus, it was Blackburn Maximus, not me. Oh, sorry, Blackburn Maximus. I don't know why I read it as Paul. Dan, how did you find a link to a crated... Oh, it's a Kobe. It's the Kobe Spitfire. Oh, you know, not an endorsement, but... there is one left in stock on Amazon, Kobe. And it is £33. Look, I am looking forward to finally having a far larger office space. And I can finally start displaying some of these things. But I'm also interested in the fact that there is a company called Tarkari, which apparently does a £20 Vought Corsair made of Lego style bricks. That looks fairly good, actually. I'm just pointing that out, okay, if anyone's interested in it. Just pointing it out. I would say some of the things they design look terrible, but the Corsair actually looks fairly good. If it comes out anything like it looks in the box. Thank you, Black Maximus. Yes, you did send $70 Canadian. I do remember that super chat because that's made my evening in many ways. But don't take this the wrong way. Every time one of those lawyers or bankers seems to message me, it seems to involve a bill. Believe it or not, I started this process of moving house with savings. I think the phrase I used recently, and I'm honest with this, is brassic. I'm not destitute, I'm not anything like that. Please don't get me disciplining poverty. I am middle class UK. But in terms of actual cash in my account, I don't like those figures. I really don't like those figures. They're all, things which I'd prefer not to be in. Overdrafts, etc. at the moment. Because of this moving house process. Hopefully soon everything gets sorted out and it gets moved back, and then where we're going to, I'm going to be able to get into some earning, and there's going to be some more TV work coming up later this year and all sorts of things. And that will pay bills. And that will allow me to restock and actually get some savings. And I know that's not an unusual circumstance for a lot of people at the moment. There are a lot of people who are going through various things which, for all their efforts and their best intentions, everything seems to cost more these days than it was supposed to or used to. Then Raymond, the Corsair's delivery cost of $9.99. I don't want to. I'm not going to ask. Bonus, you would need an extension for the model's office with will be full box. Oh yeah, well, you know, the whole point is I'm going to have a bedroom and a spare bedroom, or rather a sort of lounge / spare bedroom upstairs. So yeah. There'll be space for things. Malta and getting back to the point of discussion tonight, and I realise I have been jumping off more than even normally this evening. I do apologise for that. It's been one of those weeks. Malta, even more, the more... Why was Malta worth it to supply, and why do they keep supplying Malta? Why do they put so much effort into it? Well, it's not just because of its positioning and it annoying the Italians, and from the point of their resupplying North Africa. That is useful. That is very, very useful. That is definitely an operational reason to do it. But there's also a strategic reason. As long as Malta stands, it both disproves... Thank you, my coach. It both disproves the notion that Fat Boy Fun Boy, the unimproved later edition, aka Mussolini, does not have control of Mare Nostrum, or, to use the quote of Yonai, Mitsumasa Yonai, Prime Minister of Japan in 1940 and a very experienced admiral of the Imperial Japanese Navy, does not have control of his bathtub, which you've been playing with. And on top of that, it also fixates attention. Let's be honest, there is a huge advantage for the British in turning the Mediterranean conflict into a point where the Italian and the German attentions are fixed on a single point. Because as long as they're watching that point, they're not watching everything else the British are doing. If you consider that, that's classic British strategy. What do they tend to do? Pay an army in Europe to keep the French busy while they gobble up their empire abroad. I.e., fix the opponent's attention on one thing, while they go off and do others. That has always been the case. Thank you, Leslie. That has always been the methodology. And it works. It's weird, but it works. Sometimes better, sometimes worse. It's also an interesting thing in that if you look in World War II, no one else really tries it in the same way. They try it on a almost regional, almost occasionally on an operational basis, but they don't try it on a strategic basis. And you can argue that Malta is a strategic basis. And as Black Most was said, if the British had still owned Heligoland, it would have made a point there. Yes, it would have. Basically, that's the thing. If the British had owned Heligoland, then the Germans would have spent their entire time focusing in on Heligoland. That would have been it. That would have been their critical point. That would have been what they would aim for. The whole time. And, honestly, resupplying Heligoland would have been interesting. You could have turned it into the Gibraltar of the northern coast of Europe, but in both world wars it would have been absolutely battered. You would have had to build all the fortifications there, all the supplies, and you would have to make it so it could be easily defended by the smallest possible garrison, with the maximum possible supplies, because resupplying them would be an absolute nightmare. I would say that would be interesting because I think if it had happened in World War One, the question would have been whether they would have, without the air capabilities that they had in World War Two, they'd certainly have used fast-moving ships to resupply. They'd probably had converted cruisers, which would do a high-speed run into Heligoland, into their drop-off supplies, and then run out. In World War II, you'd have had to have supply submarines. The British would literally have had supply submarines that would go in underwater, pop up inside the island, drop off supplies, and then leave. But if you could have maintained it, and if you wanted to maintain it, then you could have you would have made the Germans concentrate everything on that. The Blitz would not have been the Blitz. Because let's be honest, Hitler would never have let that amount of forces be focused on the UK as an island structure if Heligoland still stood. Everything would have been focused on that. Honestly, they might not have even done Norway. They might have tried an invasion of Heligoland. And before anyone says I'm being horrendously pro-British here, I do think the sheer amount of force the Germans would chuck at it would probably mean that in at least Second World War they might actually stand a chance of winning. After all, they'd have air support and all sorts of things to back them up. Although in World War I they'd have a far larger high seas fleet. Again, getting caught in a fight around Heligoland could lead to them finding out the Grand Fleet showing up, and that would be a disadvantage for them if the Grand Fleet knew exactly where they were and were coming from them. So that's the problem for them. In World War II, with aviation support, I think they could take it. But I think taking it would be an incredibly costly operation. Michael Cooch, if UK owned Heligoland in World War One, Jellicoe, I nominate Beatty as governor. Oh. actually, he could probably do that job, because let's be honest, he doesn't have to signal anyone else in that job, does he? He doesn't have to manoeuvre. Just has to tell them to fire and when to fire. And so, that's, the reality. Malta is this strategic pivot point of the Mediterranean, whether it wants to be or not. But also the reality is, if we go back to these convoys, whilst there are certainly periods, when the convoys are having more trouble, and ships are having more difficulty, there are also periods where the ships are certainly getting through. It peaks and it troughs. 1940, they don't have really any trouble. 1941, yes, they lose some ships. But they're still ultimately getting the vast majority of supplies they send through. 1942, well, if we consider what's sent to Malta, the ship from Alexandria to Malta gets there on the 8th of January. So does the ship going the other way. 4 ships sent from Alexandria on the 16th of January. 1 ship lost en route. A 5th ship sent on the 24th of January. It arrives. The 3 ships sent on the 12th of February. One of those arrives. The 3 ships sent back from Malta on the 13th of February to Alexandria all arrive. Alexandria to Malta from MW10, all 4 ships lost. And it carries on like that. But then you have some of the convoys, and you have Harpoon, where 4 ships are lost, but 1 ship gets through. Vigorous, where 2 ships are lost, but 10 ships get through. Where... Well, actually, no, they never didn't arrive, didn't they, Vigorous? And it didn't arrive, yeah. Then you have Pedestal, where 14 ships are sent, 9 get through, and 9 get lost. 5 get through. That's the period. 42 is when it reaches its high point, but also that's also the period where you start to see real development of the aircraft movements, and then by the time you get to October, you've got the whole way through, you've got all the aircraft being delivered. And then in November onwards, you start to get ships being sent and arriving. And they're starting to come from Port Said, as well as Alexandria. They're starting to come quite regularly, and they are getting through without as much difficulty. When the 9 ships go from Malta to Port Said, that's a big use as well. Because the other problem for the Royal Navy, and this is again one of the less than sort of things in terms of Malta, is clearing the ships out of the Grand Harbour of Malta and getting them back. Because whilst that might not sound as important, it really is, because you can't use them to get more supplies to Malta if they're stuck in Malta. And if they're stuck in the way, they're blocking up the harbour. They're just a target for enemy bombers. So getting them back is just as important as getting them sent. And I could be very wrong, but isn't Malta holding some form of record for the most bombed country per area? I think there is certainly a good case for it to be so. but I'm not sure about the. I have heard something similar in the past, and I have discussed something similar, but I'm not 100% sure about the exact wording of the record. I'd have to look that one up. Yeah, Britain and misdirection is a long history, you know, as people saying here, Malta, mincemeat, fake harbours during World War II, all sorts of misdirection. Yeah. Because it works. That most I think Laos or Vietnam holds the record. I think the trouble is, let's be honest, Laos and Vietnam are both a lot bigger than Malta. But they had a lot more bombing, and that did involve B-52s. So that's a whole discussion point, I think, which is really not something I would. Well, I'd have to go and research the answer to, I'm afraid. I'd have to go research that and clarify it. So, questions. And then there'll be a quick break while I go and sort out whatever the cars are doing, because I'm presuming my sister doesn't want her car parked outside on the road all night, and then I'll be on Discord to chat away with you all if you fancy that. Maybe we'll talk about Yonai, maybe we won't. Maybe we'll talk about Nubian. Beautiful picture of her in here, by the way. Let's be honest, that's another reason to ever do the Malta operations. I get to put pictures of Tribal Class Destroyers up. They just look cute. But, you know, that's it should be a fun evening. I've got plenty of Iron Brew to drink. I think I have about 2 unopened bottles. 1 open bottle. So, any questions about tonight's topic? And then we'll move on to questions of tonight's topic, which I realise Night 681 has already made a very game starting point on. But the point is, we'll do topic questions first. And also, I am going to have to, and I'm putting this note in the video, live video, so I know to remember to edit. I have to go and rework and fix up my Malta convoys tables on my Excel spreadsheet. It's not in the condition it needs to be. Do I reckon I have fajitas calling my name? Oof. Stop rubbing it in. Today my food was a jacket potato, because I was cooking for all the family and it's what they wanted. I offered tortillas, offered spaghetti and meatballs, I offered all sorts of things. No, we fancy jacket potatoes. 1 sweet potato jacket potato for my sister, 2 regular jacket potatoes, the various fillings. I like a good jacket potato, but it didn't really feel like much effort. Okay, so the questions we have. Malta garrisons. Strength. Now that's fun. Okay, so by 1942, there are 11 British battalions, 3 Maltese infantry battalions, 3 regiments of artillery, and a home guard of 3,000. So, you know, we're talking about by 1942, they have the 231st Infantry Brigade, which is the 2nd Battalion of Devonshire, the 1st Battalion of Hampshire, the 1st Battalion of Dorsetshire, 2nd and 3rd Battalions of the King's Own Malta Regiment. Then they had the 232nd Infantry Brigade, which is made the 2nd Battalion of the Royal Irish Fusiliers, the 8th Battalion of the King's Own Royal Regiment Lancaster, and the 8th Battalion of Manchester Regiment. Then a 233rd Infantry Brigade, which was formed in the 30th of July 1941. And they had the 11th Battalion of the Lancashire Fusiliers, 2nd Battalion of the Queen's Own Royal West Kent Regiment, and the 10th Battalion of the King's Own Malta Regiment. And then there's the 234th Infantry Brigade, which is the 4th Battalion of the Royal East Kent Regiment, the Buffs, the 1st Battalion of Durham Light Infantry, and the 1st Battalion of the Cheshire Regiment. Those are some very, very storied regiments. Some really storied forces. They also have tanks and all sorts of other fun things sitting there. They had Matilda 2s, Cruiser 3s, Valentine tanks, Universal carriers, and of course the light tank Mark 4s. So, yeah, this is the other point when some people make to me go, well, you know, surely they could have invaded Malta like they could have invaded Crete. And the answer is, Malta has a very organized and dug in and very well prepared armed forces organized around it. And the Malta tanks are a very capable organization as well, which will rapidly respond. Rapidly respond. They also get some Valentine tanks, and as well as their cruisers and Matildas. You know, they also have a strict policy of never throwing anything away. One interesting conversations that happens later in World War II, when they're talking about the formation there, is they're going, well, you know, they don't have this vehicle, that vehicle anymore. You know, no, they still have them. As long as they work, they're still in use. They're fine people to use them. And they will use them. Their also artillery is pretty well dug in, and they've got they've got 25 pounders, 18 pounders, 2 pounders, pretty much everything the British Army could bring. They have 4.5-inch anti-aircraft guns mounted in various positions, all sorts of naval weapons as well. And this becomes a problem. And they are heavily dug in. Right. For how long are we going to fortifying Malta? Yes. This is the thing when people then go, well, okay, so why not invading Gibraltar? And the question goes, so how much troops are you prepared to chuck at Gibraltar? And how quickly do you think you're going to make it? Because it's called a rock for a reason. That a rapid armoured assault is not going to happen. For that, you'd have to first get the tanks through Spain to there, so everyone would probably know they're coming. Everyone and their dog would know they're coming. And secondly, if you look at Gibraltar, you're not going to make a rapid armoured descent on Gibraltar. It's a literal bottleneck. It's designed to ruin your day as a besieging force. Black Maxus, did anyone put or try to put 15 or 16-inch guns on Malta? Again, we have to go to... There were discussions in the 20s. There were discussions at the same time as they were putting them on Singapore, etc., and as for Gibraltar as well. And the answer to that usually goes back to a certain gentleman called Winston Churchill as Chancellor of the Exchequer. Most of those ideas die a death at that point, and by the time they're being re-examined later, it's too late to do them. How messed up would the Italians have been if Malta had had the recommended establishment of aircraft, air guns, etc., plus decent naval strike force from the outside of war of Italy? So if they'd had everything they needed plus the supplies, and let's say, let's add in the added bonus of they'd got the 15-inch guns they were supposed to have, that they were considering in the 20s, then the Italians would have had a nightmare. Would have absolutely had a nightmare. It would have been a severe case of, oh, frigate. What do we do here? Because, again, land-based 15-inch guns, you can get them up to fire at 45 plus degrees. You can put a land-based turret there, which can get them to fire at a higher angle than you can at sea. So you can get maximum range from those guns from the same barrel. So that's fun. You want to make it a nightmare for them, they're going to lose a lot of forces. And people are asking me how I would do it as the CNC. Basically submarines, mines, all around there for as long as I could. I don't want to do an air attack, air invasion, and there's not really any good beaches for me to do an amphibious assault. I can try something in the north of Malta and hope to work my way south. But I will need to bring everything, and I will need to bring it heavy. And I'll be prepared to take a lot of losses, because I will lose losses. And honestly, you would almost need to have sent me either some French battleships or Scharnhorst and Gneisenau, instead of going into France, will have had to gone through the Straits of Gibraltar and made a run for Italy. That's the kind of reinforcements I'll need. Even though the Italian Navy is as strong as it is, that's the kind of reinforcers you need. And the cost will be heavy. I will lose a lot of ships. Were there any dog boats? I think there were torpedo boats based at Malta at various points, but I don't think there were dog boats. I think they were Fairmile Seas doing their job there, I think. But I'd have to check that up to be sure. Let's mention, given Malta's location, did that help hide the Enigma secret? It did certainly make it easier to arrange for convoys, the critical convoys from from Italy to North Africa to be intercepted by... Oh, an aircraft's overflown us. Invading Malta for neutralization. Find any area that has open terrain with viable beach access, plaster battleship guns, and any defenders and reinforcements land infantry division with heavy artillery. I can understand your point, but I would like to point out of try and find a beach wide enough on Malta for that. Give me a second. So that should have appeared for you all. And I want it to go to that. And let's go have a look at Malta. The trouble is, there are beaches, but those beaches do not lead to open areas, and yeah, they are. The trouble is, most of the beaches in Malta then lead to cliffs which do that. So you are maneuvering once you get in. Potential option, but then you're going to be landing in this area, and let's be honest, you have a 17th century fortress which was fortified up here. You then have forest sections and groves which make the bocage look fun. You have another fortress position up here. If I can take that... Can I take that out? Yeah. See, look. This is your problem. You land. You aren't going anywhere. It's basically, we have landed. Yay! We are now we are now being grid squared by the British artillery. Trust me, if the Italians had thought there was any chance they could do it, they would have done it. And like that, so it stops moving around. You know, you've got this area, and that's not a particularly good beach to land on, trust me. That's not a particularly one I want to particularly bring modern landing craft to, let alone, you know, the ones they'd have had at that period for the Italians. And there's a literal battery here. This is just not a good place to land. So I can understand your point. Take airfield under fire control, then let British hold harbour. The trouble is the airfield isn't so much an airfield at this point. Again, also the airfield is actually quite a heavily fortified spot. So you're going to, if you take the airfield, you're going to have to hold the airfield, and you're going to have to take the airfield. You're going to lose a lot of people doing it. But also, getting to the airfield is not going to be particularly easy. Because if you consider the airfield, and they had multiple of them, even the modern one is quite inland, and you found would have found a lot of troops there. Terrain is just not... No, in nicest... I would say this, there have been Ottoman sultans, there have been lots of people who have found the Maltese terrain to not be friendly for an invasion. And that's before you start to consider things like, okay, let's try and take one of these other islands so we can torment them from there. And you go, well, that island is not friendly for invasion. And this is the smallest island here. There is absolutely nowhere I think I can put my thing down. But yeah, there is just nowhere in this area I really would like to land troops if it is remotely defended. You can consider this the Santa Maria Bay. That's a position I could bring people into. And it's got even that, which can definitely take heavy craft, which looks period appropriate, so probably something there then. Yeah, that's not a good position. It's not conducive for armour, and let's be honest, it's not conducive for infantry attacking either. Margaret, if the twins run into Med, what capital ships does the RN send after them? No, what they do if the twins run into the Mediterranean, Nelson and Rodney sit at Gibraltar and go, "You're not getting out again." And maybe a King George V goes and joins the Mediterranean fleet, but probably not. Because, honestly, the Queen Elizabeths, the upgraded Queen Elizabeths, they can probably handle themselves against them. They can handle themselves against them without any trouble if they get into a fight. The main trouble they're going to deal with is the sheer strength of the Regia Marina, etc. at that point. So more likely you're going to get the Royal Navy going, we need to reinforce the Mediterranean fleet from the point of view of fighting that combined force. So if, let's say, after Taranto, the Germans decide to reinforce by sending Scharnhorst and Gneisenau to the Mediterranean, they're never getting them out again. Okay? At that point, they're off the board. They're in the Mediterranean for the rest of the war. And secondly, yeah, the Royal Navy will send something when they feel like it, but that suddenly reduces a lot of the problems down to basically, oh, Bismarck is available. Max, were there any attempts by Italy to use frogmen against ships in the harbour at Malta? I don't think they ever decided to go that far. I think they decided Alexandria was a better target than Malta for that. But Dan Freeman said yes. It's their fast boats though, the explosive motorboats, but not the. I don't think the frogmen as in the divers. And the fast boats were their motor torpedo boats, but they also had their explosive torpedo boats, what they called. Oh, brain. Look up notes. The MT explosive boat. Ah, yes. From Motoscafe del Turismo. Little boat. Cool. HMS Terror with her 15-inch guns is always fun to have. The trouble is that beaches and Malta will very quickly be visited by Andrew Cunningham and friends. Quite definitely. The British artillery wouldn't hit the angry citizens of Valletta while they hit Lynch of Paris. No. The British would not. They would just let the Maltese deal with it the way the Maltese want to deal with it. I would not want to be a paratrooper coming down into Malta. Imagine the German paratrooper trying to take the Malta airfield with pistols before they can get their rifles and machine guns, and finding that the pillboxes have machine gunners and have crews who've actually got rifles and machine guns in it, and are full of people who don't like them. Would the Dunkirks be altered if the French had their 4 Lyon, 5 Normandy, 3 Bretagne counterships? Potentially. Potentially. It's going to depend on what they want from them, and also going to depend on the treaty scenarios, etc. If there's no treaty scenario, then I don't see them getting the Dunkirks, because they don't need to get the Dunkirk. They get something better. And Dunkirks are good, but they get something better. So about 100,000 to 300,000 Axis casualties to try to more. I'd hope it wouldn't be that heavy. I'd hope they'd probably settle for 10,000 and go, this is not going to work, and withdraw. Thank you. Right, I'm going to say thank you very much, everyone, for being here. I'm going to go quickly move those cars and sort those cars around, because if I don't, they'll be very upset. As all the other stuff happened earlier, and then I'll be on Discord. Thank you very much, everyone, for being here. What we've got coming up next week, it's the conception, operation, and conclusion of the Shokaku class. And on the 30th of May, well, you should see the live should be announced probably Friday. Probably I will upload all the details for Friday. Thank you everyone for being here. Hope you enjoyed. I'm getting multiple texts reminding me about the car. So I will say, hope to see you all on Discord. Hope to see you again on Brew Ships on Sunday, which, as said, I will advertise on Sunday because I think that's a sensible decision to make with the Sundays we're currently having. It's timing and starting, but it will be on Sunday. There will be something. As long as I'm not, touchwood, doing a repeat of last Sunday and doing a tour of medical facilities, I will be looking forward to seeing you all on Sunday for Brew Ships. Thank you very much, everyone. Take care and have fun. Hope to see you on Discord in a bit. Why did that decide to misshape itself? I don't know, I love life. Thank you very much, everyone. Take care. Have fun.